guys,
I'm Hallee,
and I'm Jamie.
and this is Literal Nonsense.
Hey guys, welcome back to Literal Nonsense Podcast.
Hey!
We are on episode 8 now. We got away from the main trilogy, and now we're doing a fun little novella Christmassy book called A Court of Frost and Starlight. So this episode will cover chapters 1 through 28, pages 1 through 229. It is the entire book, so no multiple parts. It is all in this episode.
Woo! There's not a lot that goes on, so...
There's not, but it is very important and relevant to talk about, which we will conclude this episode by explaining. So fun news though, guys. When you are listening to this episode live, guess where we will be?
Scottsdale, Arizona.
We'll be on my bachelorette party.
Recording live! Well, we won't be recording live.
We won't be. We're recording now so that when we are there...
And we're blacked out.
Yeah, we can think of nothing at all.
Yeah.
We can just schedule this episode.
And you guys can enjoy.
Yeah.
While we enjoy.
We can be just drinking by a pool, dancing, eating good food.
Mm-hmm.
Girl trip extravaganza. I'm very excited.
I know. I really hope we go to like a bar that has a mechanical bull.
That's all Hallee wants to do.
I just want to ride a mechanical bull.
I think that's more like Texas than like deserty Arizona. No?
You don't think they have one there?
I'm sure they have one. Yeah.
I wonder if there's one in Jersey.
I'm sure. Probably Hoboken, I'm sure.
Really?
I feel.
Mm.
Yeah, but there's 10 of us going. 10 girls.
Jesus.
Hallie's dream come true. It's really exciting though because a lot of my bridesmaids are from other states, so I get to like see everyone. Also, I have friends from like different areas of my life, and they all get to be together.
I got hoes in different area codes.
Literally. And for me, it's gonna be like, you know how like when your favorite book like mashes up and characters intertwine? Like that's what this is gonna be for me.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy.
I'm gonna be like, oh my god, my worlds are colliding. So I'm really excited because like seeing everyone in the same room is gonna be just
wild.
Yeah, and they're all gonna get along so well. I hope that I'm saying that and that is what is true. And if you don't listen to this, we're like, it was a shit show.
It was a shit show.
It's possible.
Hopefully no one gets lost.
I do have drunk wanderer friends, I will say.
Well, stay tuned.
We'll let you know episode 9 how this went, because we'll be recording that after we get back.
Yeah.
Whew. All right, well.
Big breath?
Yeah, without further ado, let's get into this book. And so, this book begins, it's been a few months since the end of the war, so things have settled down a little bit. Feyre also remarks that it's been 2 years since she killed that wolf, so basically from the start of book 1 until now, it's been 2 years, so that's
crazy.
Kind of the span.
I forgot that it was 2 years.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
It is. And I mean, it is, but also, like, they've dealt with enough in 2 years to last a lifetime.
Well, yeah, a lot of shit happened.
And so basically the main setup right now we learn is that they're still working on the war alliances. They're trying to figure out who their allies are to make a lasting treaty and new rules. Now, it's also 1 week until winter solstice. That's basically December 21st.
It's also Feyre's birthday.
Yep, Feyre's birthday. And so in the night court, that's a big deal because it's the longest night of the year. Mm-hmm. So naturally, the night court and I guess I'm sure winter court is like their big holiday.
Yeah. Just like for spring court.
Oh my god, that loud bang. Heard that?
I did. There's a ghost. Casper, please hold on.
Right, we're recording. Please stop. what?
What was the holiday in spring court?
Oh, Calamine.
Yeah. So it's like Calamine's like spring's deal, like winter solstice is like night court.
Yeah, I think they all celebrate because even Reese said in the vision that Feyre saw the big bonfires, he was like, oh, the only court who does Calamine that big is spring because it's like their deal. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so I think everyone has like a winter solstice, but night court really big for them. Now, also, it's like a wintry Christmas type of holiday, so that's the same thing in night court. Awesome. And so Feyre's reflecting on that. She's okay, I gotta get set up for this, get everyone gifts, all this stuff. Okay, fine.
There's a lot of prep that goes into it.
Right. And so Feyre also talks about her main jobs that she does right now. And so she's mainly doing like paperwork, helping with like the funds of the night court, taking on that role. And she's also volunteering at societies to rebuild after the war and help with war efforts.
Mm-hmm. Which is what she wanted to do in the spring court with Tamlin, but Tamlin was like, no.
Right. And so Rhys let is a loose term because he doesn't really let her do anything, as we've learned. They don't really have that kind of relationship. But he's enabling her to really take on her role as High Lady, and she's having full involvement like she wants, right?
Full integration.
Yeah, so she's liking it. She's having a good time. She's like not complaining, but she's like, yeah, there's a lot to do, but she's not upset about it. She's like, yeah, like I gotta do it because there's a lot to do.
Exactly.
So yeah, so that's what's going on with Feyre and kind of the first part of the book where we're at.
Mm-hmm. So I kind of like after all that is like said, because it's like, okay, whatever, just like filler information. Fucking Lucian comes in, he's got a black eye and a bruised lip, and you're like, what the fuck? So Tamlin, he's isolated himself, he's got no friends, and he's beaten up on the one person who's like his boy. Like, what an asshole.
Yeah.
I thought we were past this, Tamlin. I thought we were getting a redemption arc here.
Right, well, right, and that's what's interesting, because, yeah, we really ended the book thinking we were going there, and he's just, like, having this, like, crazy depression. So I guess, even though there is forgiveness and they're moving on, like, he's still not happy with his life.
Yeah.
And he probably feels a little betrayed by Lucian just because Lucian didn't go to the night court with Feyre.
That's true. But his mate was there, so...
Right, you can understand that.
Well, whatever. So Lucian's like, yeah, fuck Tamlin, fuck that. I can't go back to Autumn Court, so can I stay in Valaris?
Yeah, they are totally fine having Lucian.
Yeah, so he gets his own apartment. Nesta also has her own apartment, which is interesting.
We will dive into that.
God.
Not this episode, probably. Next one, for sure.
We'll definitely allude to it in this episode.
Oh, yes, we do. You're right.
So that's like another reason why this book is important.
Mm-hmm. And so yeah, so basically I think Elaine's still staying at the townhouse. I think she's like content to be with everyone.
They probably don't know what to do with her still.
So in
after
this
she
book,
just shoved the knife into the fucking
right, they're like, are you good, Elaine? She's like, I'm fine.
She's still on a watch.
Right.
Before it was because she was whacked. This time it's because she's homicidal.
Right. They're like, she's doing all right. And so we have a Rhys chapter. Now we've had Rhys chapters before, but we're gonna notice it's a little different for this book. So we have a Rhys chapter. He's up in the Illyrian war camp, so there's starting to be disputes up there. Him and Cassie are trying to convince the lords of the camps to let the girls train. They have very old-fashioned, backward ways of thinking. They don't let the girls train. And Cassie and Rhys are like, no, it's required. Like, we will kick your asses, basically. So they're trying to, like, kind of revolutionize and, I don't know, make these camps woke, you know? They're like,
yeah, they're very
quality.
Old. Yeah, they're very old school. Right, so it's like the men are the providers, the muscle, and the women are they're the stay-at-home moms. They do the laundry, they cook, they take care of the kids.
Right. And so Rhys is like, hey, they can still do that, but like so can the guys, and then they all can train, you know. Mm-hmm. So him and Cassie are really trying for that. There's dispute because of that. At first they refuse, but they kind of convince them. So after they have this conversation with Lord Devlin, is the one main camp leader. Cassian tells Rhys there's a lot of unrest in the Illyrian war camps. Basically, the Illyrians resent them for going to war, right? They're like, you're telling us what to do, you're also making us fight wars, people of ours die on your behalf. Granted, it's for like all of Prithian, but they're kind of, even though they're part of the Night Court, like they're their own little unit.
Yeah, they're kind of like segregated.
Yeah, like they just have their own, again, as I mentioned, they have their own ideologies, their own traditions, their own histories. Yeah. So they didn't really have to fight this war, and so they're kind of pissed that like Rhys called them in, you know, because he's Illyrian and Fae, so it's or High Fae. So he's kind of like the bridge between them, but it kind of screws them in these situations. And so we see unrest there. That's going to be important. We will discuss that more this episode. So now Rhys, after they have this conversation, is talking to Cassian, and he's just saying that he feels like he can't be this happy. Like, things are really good, even, like, with the basic, like, little things he's done with the Illyrians. Yeah. Like, he's overall happy, and he's like, I feel like I'm going to be tricked. Like, I need to pay for this happiness. Mm-hmm. And Cassian's like, dude, like, you've paid for it more than anyone I know. Like, all those years under the mountain, the war itself, right?
Yeah, like, take this time to be happy.
Right, like, but he's still having that emotional fallout from the war we're seeing from him. But clearly not that much emotional fallout because him and Feyre are having sex in the sky. Like,
they're in the Mile High Club.
Yeah.
For all to see.
Yeah, no, this is a whole new term of Mile High Club.
I think that was, like, actually... So she wrote that, like, mad, like, inconspicuous. Like,
yes.
Like, it was, like, 2 lines, and, like, and then she just goes on, and it's like, what?
He basically is like, oh, I've been so busy that I don't have time to have sex.
Yeah,
so
I had to take her in the skies.
and then he's like, all right, and then me and Cassie kept talking, and you're like,
what?
That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, that's weird. It's definitely not as unhinged as her growls of pleasure drowned out the dying men.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're definitely a little unhinged. So we have that going on. So overall, Rhys and Feyre, very busy, but overall very happy and grateful to be alive. Okay, great.
Yeah, because why would things stop at the war, right? Now you have to build everything back up.
Which makes sense, and I'm glad that she's writing that transition for us.
Yeah. So after this Rhys chapter, we get a Cassian chapter now.
So this is new.
Which is nice because we can... I like the multi-perspective chapters. I know some people feel like it's hard to, like, keep track and keep up with, but I feel like you really start to see who the characters truly are instead of reading about them from a third-person perspective.
I agree, and I think in certain books, right, like Throne of Glass starts out that way.
Mm-hmm.
I think at this point, when we're getting multiple perspectives, we already know these characters so intimately, like
Mm-hmm.
Cassian. We're going to have a more chapter. So I think it's pretty easy to follow because their voices are so distinct from each other.
That's true.
So I think in this book, it is easier. I agree with you, because certain books I get confused if it's like right off the bat we're introduced that way. But in this case, because we know them so intimately from Feyre, I think it's just honestly refreshing and no confusion because, like, again, we know them so well. Now we're like, oh, cool, we have like a sense of Cassian's head. And SJM, of course, writes them beautifully, and like their voices are very strongly independent of each other.
Yeah, for sure. Jenks, you owe me a soda.
Oh, I would love like a ginger ale right now.
Oh my god, no.
Ginger ale is not soda. It's actually health.
Coke.
It's like kombucha.
I want a Coke.
That's soda.
Like a Coke from McDonald's. Hits different.
Yeah.
Anyways, so in this chapter, Cassian flies to Ramiel, and Ramiel is like the highest peak of like the mountains in the Night Court, and we get some insight into what this thing called the Rite is. So in the Illyrian camps, when the men are like training to become like warriors, they have to go through this rite, and basically they're like kidnapped in the dead of night, and they're like blindfolded and gagged, and then they're thrown at the base of the mountain, and then they have a week to get to the top of the mountain. But not everybody reaches the top, so there's like 3 levels. So like if you make it a certain like
I think they're like thrown in like camps, like far from the mountain, and then to like get the first.
Well, yeah, they're at the base and they have to make it up.
Well, no, like one of the tiers, like the first tier, is you make it to the base of the mountain.
Oh.
So I think they're like far away, like they're all around it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you make it to the base of the mountain, like you're considered like impressive.
Yeah, so there's like, you know, depending on how far you get will determine like what
like status
rank.
Warrior.
Yeah. And if you survive like for the whole week without even making it, whatever, like you're still a warrior.
Yeah, you survived. Good job.
Yeah, but everyone has to go through this, right? Yeah. So so basically Cassian's like reminiscing on the Rite.
Mm-hmm. And I think he explains that like their wings are tied, they have no weapons, so they're like bare bones. It's like testing their final test.
Exactly. And so at the top of Ramiel, there's this onyx monolith, which, okay, weird. Like, that's just, like, casually thrown in there. Yeah. And basically what happens at the end of the Rite, like, if you make it that far, you touch the monolith, and it transports you back to the camp. And then you become, like, the highest ranking soldier. Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, and during the Rite, there's 3 stars that are directly above Ramiel. And it's only at that time of the Rite, and that's also the insignia of the Night Court.
Yeah, and so the reason the Rite is going to be important in our future episodes and books to come, but I also speculate there's more to this in general.
Potential for metaverse.
Yeah, I think, because he mentions with the onyx monolith that, like, oh, we don't even know who put it there. It's been here since before the Night Court was even formed. So this is like an ancient thing. It transports you. We'll talk a lot about this also in Silver Flames, but definitely relevant on the second read. And I'm like, these are big little Easter eggs, I think, at least.
For sure.
So yeah.
Yeah. And then it's also talked more about in Silver Flames, which is the next book after this.
Yes, so we'll discuss more.
Yeah. And then also, like, in this chapter, he talks about how he goes to visit his mom's, like, old camp, like, like, the group that she's from in Illyria, like, where she grew up and where Cassian grew up. But we know that there's some tricky history there, and he, like, set the whole camp on fire and killed everyone there because they killed his mom.
Right.
Which is death, destruction.
So Cassian's just reflecting, and then we jump back to a favorite chapter. So again, I think that chapter was just, again, insight to his voice, but also giving us a reason to get this information, which is going to be valuable.
Yeah.
Basically. And so we go back to Feyre, and she meets Racina. She's like an artist. She's walking around the Rainbow Quarter, and Racina finds her, and, on the street, she's looking at an abandoned art studio. And so she tells Feyre this is abandoned, that person didn't make it through the Battle of Valaris. They're chit-chatting, and Racina invites Feyre to paint. They have like a little weekly painting session. And Feyre like debates it because she wants to paint again, but she's still kind of like dealing with her feelings. Okay, fine. Now at this part as well, Feyre starts talking about Fae cycles, childbearing, things like that. So she uses it in a sense of saying that she needs to explain to her sisters how, like, their new anatomy works. But then she's also saying, like, oh, this is how, Fae childbearing would work. So we're getting an introduction into childbearing already. Again, it seems innocent at this point because you're like, oh, it makes sense. Her sisters just became Fae. They obviously didn't have time to talk about this during the war, but now that would make sense. We'd have to have these conversations. So again, a decent way for SJM just to give us information in a subtle way, but not so subtle, right?
Hate that.
Yeah,
big hater over here.
You are.
Then we get more chapter.
We do.
And Moore's like reminiscing about like the Autumn Court and what happened to her. And it's at this point that she says that she had 3 nails in her womb, along with the note.
Right.
So, I mean, strange that it would be so specific. So, like, what are your thoughts?
I think they just keep bringing it up. So actually, when I was looking in the Wings and Ruin book, they also said womb there too. So this is the second time they're saying it.
Yeah.
Again, 3 nails, very specific.
Was she pregnant?
Yeah, right. Did her and Cassian, like,
was that their attempt at a hysterectomy?
Right, like, what's going on? Or were they just saying, like, it's to your womb because, like, you had sex and now you're, like, sullied? I don't...
Like, now you can't have children kind of thing?
Right, I don't know. Again, I'm just curious to see how this plays out. We know that Eris is not what he seems. We know that there's more to that story. Obviously, we're going to find out one day. I'm just curious how this whole thing went down. I forget when, but Eris also alludes and is like, Moore knows what happened.
Yeah, she knows the truth.
She won't tell anyone. So what's going on here? We don't know.
So she's still a liar?
Right,
She's still lying every damn day.
Right. I'm curious. Yeah, I think there's more to that whole story. I think we're going to end up liking Eris a lot more. I just want to know, honestly. So, interesting. So now... After more reminiscences on this, I guess reminiscing is the wrong word because, like, it's not happy. Yeah. After she muses, I don't know. Then we go back to Rhys. Rhys and Azriel are talking, right? So talking about the Illyrian unrest, what they're going to do about it. Rhys also kind of is like, so what's up with you and Elaine? Like, he's feeling the room out a little bit. There's been, like, weird things, like, as we've talked about. So now, the reason I really wanted to mention this chapter mainly is because Rhys, at the end of their conversation, is like, oh, are you going to Rose Hall? Make sure you get her a gift from me. We are speculating at this point. The first read, I didn't even notice that he said this, to be completely honest. The second read, I'm like, what the fuck is Rose Hall and who is her? I strongly feel that it's Azriel's mom. We don't know anything about her at this point, but it's like, it's an elusive her. But we know Cassian's mom like is dead. We know Reese's mom is dead. We never really heard about Azriel's mom, so that's what you're thinking. Again, Reese also says it fondly, like, get her a gift, like, enjoy the holiday.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, it's probably his mom. So I'm sure she will be, more of a player. We'll learn more about her.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, so we will see what happens with that. I just wanted to mention that it was brought up in this book, so we are having another little Easter egg here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now that you mention it, yeah, like you said, like, I totally brushed over that the first time I read it.
Didn't even notice that it happened.
No.
I texted you the second read. I'm like, what the fuck is Rose Hall?
Yeah.
Like, do we know where this is? And you're like, no.
Yeah, no clue.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, back to Cassian now. Sorry, are you getting whiplash from all this back and forth?
We're trying to like say like Cassian chapter, Reese chapter. But again, reading it definitely does flow good. So we're trying to do that justice and just make it make sense.
Yeah, we're just like framing it for you guys. But basically Cassian is with the Illyrians again, and he goes to this shop because for winter solstice he wants to get like winter supplies like jackets, mitts, ear muffs and whatever for like the poorer people in Illyria, which so cute. So we meet a new character. Her name is Emery, and she is the owner of this shop, and she has clipped wings.
Mm-hmm.
So basically it's like an old tradition, I guess, in Illyria where like they would clip the women's wings so then that way they wouldn't learn how to fly. So kind of a way to like, ensure that the men rule and the women drool.
Keep them down. Right. Yeah, just like they're restricting them. They're I can't think of the word, but
yeah, but also I think it's in this chapter that she mentioned, like she says something along like, because Cassian obviously is not liked really in Illyria, and Emery's like, oh well, I'm not really liked here either, and he was like, then don't tell them like who it's from, just give it to them.
Right. Yeah, she's kind of like, and they kind of bond over the fact that like they have a forward way of thinking, but they're not liked for it. But he's kind of almost like, well, if you're not liked, then I'll probably like you.
Yeah, exactly.
They kind of had this little moment.
And he goes on to say about how it would be interesting if Emery and Nesta met each other, like how that would go.
Yeah, he's like, oh, well, what would those two get up to? Which is huge foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, how we're flipping back and forth, really it's going to be focusing, even as we flip back and forth, it's going to be talking all about just what's going on since the war and a lot of things in Illyria. So it should be decently easy to keep track of, and we'll try to mention whose chapter is whose. So then after Cassian is talking to Emery, he's just staying in Illyria, so we flash back over into Valaris, and it's a Feyre chapter. Feyre is going to paint with Racina, but she decides last minute to ditch that, and then she goes
She got scared.
Yeah, she was like, maybe not. And so she goes into that empty studio, she like breaks in. And so she's painting.
She's the high lady. Is it considered breaking in?
Yeah, I guess not. And so she's painting the empty studio, and so while Feyre's doing this, and like having a nice day, evening, whatever, Reese is like, I'm gonna go to Spring Court. Like, ooh, that's a bold move. And so Reese gets there, and he's like, it's a fucking tomb. Like, there's no walls. There's nothing going on. There's no guards. There's, like, plants growing everywhere.
Think of, like, a dead garden.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's Spring
Court. Like, the secret garden, but, like, not fun and whimsical. Like, just, like...
Dead.
Yeah, like, shitty.
Oh, like, it's kind of like...
Like, no landscaping.
Oh, God. Is it Maleficent, that movie?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it...
Rosa?
Yeah, and it's just, like this dark, foresty, like, decrepit.
I still imagine it green. I just imagine it, like, you know, like, when someone doesn't, like, take care of their plants in their yard, and it just looks like fucking... Like, an abandoned, like, a sane asylum.
I was thinking of
dark.
It, like, Chernobyl.
Interesting. So, when I was, like, younger, I used to go into mental institutions that were abandoned. We used to, like, hang out there. Like, they'd be, like, overgrown with things.
I thought the story was going somewhere completely different.
Yeah, I was
I was going to... Jamie, do we need to stop recording real quick?
You're like, should we talk? I don't know this about you. Should we talk about it? No, like, I don't know why, but in our area, there's,
that's a thing.
Abandoned,
Yeah. You go for the graffiti and, like, you smoke weed,
Yeah. And so, yeah, I would go when I was younger. And like there was all this like shit everywhere, but it's like all the plants were like growing into it. But it was green, but it was just like overrun with plants.
Okay.
That's how I was imagining it.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
And so, okay, regardless, I guess, of however we're imagining this, spring court is overgrown. It is a shit show. And so we also notice there's no sentries there to enforce the border, right? So it's just like a free-for-all in the spring court. Granted, there's like no one there, but still, like, what if the humans want to make, more property, more treaty lines, change them for themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Reese is kind of a dick when he's there. And he's like pointing out, like, well, my mate did this. And it's not super nice, and he knows he's being a dick. Like, he reflects in his own mind about it. So what do we think about this? Like, because here's my thing with it. He's being a dick, but, like, ultimately he won. So do you kick a man when he's down?
I don't know. The moral part of me would say this is wrong.
But can you, like, help yourself, right? Because you love this person and they hurt her.
Yeah.
Multiple times, right?
Yeah.
Even when she went back, when he thought he got her back, like...
multiple times over.
He was angry and hurt her.
Okay, so, like, yes, Tamlin did help out with the war. But it's hard to just completely erase all the other bad shit that he did.
Well, right, and that's what I'm saying. Like, even when Tamlin, quote-unquote, thought he got Feyre back when she was, like, the High Lady and, like, infiltrating the Spring Court, like, he still wasn't nice to her. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like he was doting on her and was, like, super nice.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he still physically hurt her. He was still being a dick. He still was controlling her. Yeah. So it makes me feel a little bit less bad because, again, that's what he would have done for the rest of his life with her.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. So, interesting.
Kind of split.
I am as well, but...
I hate Tamlin, but then it's also like, I don't know.
Well, and there's one quote I want to point out, which makes me go back more toward his side, and I'm like, I feel bad for him. So Reese is kind of a dick, whatever, but then he's, like, about to leave, and he's reflecting on how Tamlin is a broken male, right? And he says he's broken from his own actions, his own choices. So Reese, I think, is also having this internal battle of, like, should I have been a dick? I don't really know, but I kind of can't help myself.
Because, like, what would Feyre do in that instance? Like, do you think she would be a dick?
Right. I don't know, truthfully. I don't know. And so Reese ends this by saying, Tamlin didn't have shields around the house, none to prevent anyone from winnowing in to guard against enemies appearing in his bedroom and slitting his throat. It was almost as if he was waiting for someone to do it. Oof. Yeah. That's a really powerful quote. I mean, this is one of the most powerful High Lords as well. Like, or the fact that you're a High Lord means you're one of the most powerful High Fae, rather. And he just doesn't give a fuck about his life or anything, or his court, or his responsibilities.
Like, he's going through it.
Yeah, so he's in a really dark place. That being said, I think, again, him and Feyre...
do people deserve to suffer for their actions?
Right. And that being said, too, right? Feyre and him do have forgiveness, but it doesn't mean that he's just going to have a happy life. He's still depressed and having a miserable time. So that's rough. Okay, so yeah.
I'm kind of up in the air about it.
So that was where Reese went while Feyre's fucking painting her little pictures.
Yes. So Feyre comes back from painting, and her and Cassian get drunk, and they're decorating the house, which is
so wholesome. Like,
so cute. Love it.
Obsessed.
And then, like, Az comes in, and he's, like...
fixing it?
Yeah, because it's a mess because they're drunk. So I just thought that was, like, really funny, like, cute comedic relief, I guess.
And I love their little family. Like, they just have, like, a great vibe. Like, I feel like I'm, like, part of this group when I'm reading.
Exactly.
It's such, like, a nice, refreshing feeling.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also important to point out that Elaine is adjusting better than Nesta.
Like, way better now.
Yeah, which is crazy. Like, she's, like, participating in conversation. She's, like, around more, whereas, like, Nesta is, like, just chilling in her apartment. And
yeah, Elaine's, like, baking with the twins.
Yeah.
She's gardening.
And the twins are Reese's...
handmaids, kind of. They're kind of spies, too, I think.
Are they wraiths?
I think they're wraiths. It's Novella
Nuala
and Cyrodiil?
Yeah, Cyrodiil.
Something like that.
Who also were there under the mountains. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's who was, like, taking care of Feyre. And also when she was at the Night Court in the beginning, would take care of her and help her get dressed and stuff.
Yeah.
So they're around, but Elaine's kind of like their friend. So the three of them are together a lot. But yeah, Elaine's doing great.
Yeah, but there's tension with Nesta, though, because they're... So Nesta basically is not doing well. Like I said, she's isolating herself, and she's just, like, going to taverns and whatever. So they're all kind of, like, peeved with Nesta. Like,
Yeah.
we just went through this crazy war. Like, we should be together, happy. And Nesta's like, nah, like, I'm just going to do me.
Right.
Which we'll talk more about.
Mm-hmm.
There's also some weird fucking tension with Azriel and Elaine, which just makes me want to vomit.
Yeah.
They're kind of like doting on each other.
Yeah, they definitely are. They're very shy around each other.
Yeah. It's like having like, you know, like your first crush in like the 3rd grade.
Correct.
You know?
But I do find it interesting that Elaine is like mad about Nesta. Like, she's pissed. Like, why is she not here? Like, why isn't she adjusting? And I was like, damn girl, you like didn't talk for fucking 6 months. Like, whatever. So that's
speaking in riddles.
Right. But yes, but her and Az definitely have a thing going on. I just, in my opinion, again, I don't support them. I think it's one of those things where it's hard because Nesta and Cassian are both very fiery and they complement each other. In this case, I don't think the shy, quiet complement each other.
No.
I think they both need someone to bring them out of their shells.
Like, how boring.
Yeah, like, I think Cassian and Nesta are like a good complement, even though they're very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I don't think that Elaine and Azriel are a good complement. And so,
well, hopefully they just don't end up together because...
Yeah, but we do see them at this point kind of like flirting around the idea of like entertaining each other.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Right.
And then also while they're at the house, they all have like a family dinner. I think it's funny that Amren, now that she's just in this Fae body, she has to eat like food now.
She can't just drink blood.
Yeah, so she's having trouble eating, which is funny. And she also mentions that like she can't pee, and everyone makes fun of her.
Okay, so here was my thing with that, and I think it's really funny. But I'm like, if you just drank blood, you probably would pee a ton. I'm confused.
No, like she didn't have to do that.
I guess, but like
she had no excrement.
I guess, but in my head, I'm like, well, because I always thought when she drank blood, right, it would like go into her stomach, whatever. Like that's just what her thing was.
And then you'd
pee it out. I guess like she has like absorbed it like into her body,
like a vampire.
Do vampires not pee? Like I don't know. I have no idea.
I don't think I've ever seen Stefan Salvatore or Damon Salvatore like go to the bathroom in the show.
How about Edward Cullen?
No, he doesn't eat. He doesn't even eat.
Sleep. Yeah.
Crazy, right?
I don't know. I was just thinking, like, in my head, like, I was like, oh, I feel like she peed a lot, you know? Like, I was like, damn. Like,
that bitch peeing everywhere.
Yeah, she's peeing all the time. But I guess she's not. I guess now she is.
And she can't do it. She's having trouble.
Right, and they're hysterical because it's, like, bad.
She, like, has to learn. She has to potty train.
Yeah, amazing.
That's insane. She's been alive for eons. And
love that for her. She's like, what the fuck is this? I mean,
that's terrible.
I want to draw Amren in a diaper. Someone draw it.
Stop. We need the fan art.
Yeah, someone do it. Thank you.
Yeah. And then after dinner, Feyre goes to actually see Nesta.
Mm-hmm.
And she rolls up to this dirty tavern, and their interaction is pretty brief and it's terrible.
Goes the worst that it possibly could.
Yeah, Nesta's like a raging bitch. Mm-hmm. Feyre's like, look, whatever your fucking issue is, like, it's winter solstice tomorrow or a couple days from now, like, show up. And Nesta's like, I'll come if you give me my rent money, because Feyre and Rhys...
They're, like, bankrolling her.
Yeah.
So she's just being an alcoholic and having sex with everyone, not doing anything, being a bitch, and her and Rhys are, like, paying her bar tab, paying her rent, like, and
crazy.
she's still being a bitch. So that's crazy.
Feel bad for them.
Yeah. It's truly insane.
But it's just like a little, thing to keep in mind, like, what the fuck's up with Nesta?
Correct. And so after this chapter, Rhys came with Feyre, and she's just like upset and doesn't want to talk, whatever. And so the next day, Rhys is walking with Mork, so I think he needs a break from the Archeron sisters, quite frankly. And he's walking past all the estates on the river, so they got ruined in the Battle of Valaris, but he's just walking with her. And interesting what happens here. So he's talking to Mor, and he's saying, like, I have a new job for you. I want you to go to the continent. And she basically is having a moment with him, and she's like, is this because, you allowed Kier and Hume City to come to Valaris? Like, I don't want to run away. And he's like, listen, like, to be quite honest, I think you also just need a break. I think that this job would be good for you. Like, and he said, like, I'm not going to send Amren to be a, like, diplomat. That's a horrible idea,
Yeah, because Mor's, like,
nice,
funny,
kind.
Relatable. Yeah,
she doesn't win people over. She's like a nice
she's like
smile.
a golden retriever,
Yeah, exactly.
Or Amren's like Black Cat energy.
Right, you don't want Amren to be like your diplomat. No. So he's like, Mor, you're also great for this job, and he's like, but I think you just need a break. Like, this was really hard emotionally on you, like the things that we do to like win this war.
Yeah.
And so he's like, more, you need to get away. Now, also on the first read, didn't notice this quote. On the second read, I noticed it, and it's very interesting. So they're talking about Kier coming to Valaris and how they're all going to come there, right? And then, he's saying, like, oh, if your father comes here, I'll make sure that you're on the continent. And she was like, well, I don't want him to, like, think I'm hiding from him, because that's, like, a bad look. Like, I want to stand up to him. And so the quote says, I knew better than to ask if she thought her mother would come along. We didn't discuss Moore's mother, period. Ever, period. Interesting. Right, because we discuss Kier all the time. Kier was the one who set up the arrangement with Eris.
Mm-hmm.
He's totally a dick. All these things.
So, even under the mountain, like, they only ever talk about Kier.
Right, so what's up with Moore's mom? Is she worse than Kier? That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So again, we want to point those things out. We have not, obviously the series is not finished in itself. We're also not caught up reading all the works yet. But, like, that's weird. Again, I don't think Sarah writes things unintentionally.
You're weird.
Right. And yeah, so what's up with Moore's mom? Something's up. So I wanted to mention that, but ultimately the conversation was to serve the purpose of Reese saying, like, Moore, get the fuck out of here, like, you need a break. You can go still work for the Night Court while, like, being away from all this, like, toxic ass energy.
Yeah. And she does.
Yes.
So back to Solstice, they're prepping, people are shopping. So Fair and Elaine go to this shop that has, like, all these, like, woven blankets and whatever.
Yeah, tapestries. It's a weaver shop, like a good weaver, not like the weaver of the wood.
And it's described as, like, this black thread that's, like, blacker than night, or
yeah, like it, like, absorbs light.
It's like in SpongeBob when they go all the way at the bottom and it's like intense darkness.
Oh my god, yes. And he's like,
yeah.
Does Will talk like that?
Yes, that guy.
Oh my god, obsessed.
Yeah.
SpongeBob.
So everything is a SpongeBob reference.
Everything.
So they call the black thread the void.
Oh, I'm throwing things.
Which is like, well, because she asks, like, oh, like, what do you call this? And basically, the person who makes, I'm not making any sense right now. So basically, the lady who owns the shop.
I threw your shit on the floor, so
yeah.
I flustered you.
Jeez. The lady who owns the shop and who makes all the tapestries and blankets or whatever, her husband died in the war.
Mm-hmm.
So she's talking about how, like, they never got the chance to have a family, yada, yada. So, like, the way she works through her grief is by making her blankets and shit. And so this dark fabric is called void.
Mm-hmm.
And it's representative of that. But then she also has, like, this light iridescent fabric, which she calls hope.
Right.
Which I thought was, like, cute.
Yeah, that's fun. I like that part.
And, she, like I said, she mentions how they've never had the chance to start a family. And
right. And she's like, I can't even have, like, my husband in that way. Like, see them in our child.
Like a memory.
I have nothing left with him.
Exactly. So then Fair is thinking, like, what would I regret that, maybe I should do? Which is allusion to
a family. And yeah, I guess, like, she's thinking, like, hey, like, and also I think for her, it's easy to kind of think of this because Reese did die, even if it was for 5 seconds, because SJM can't kill anyone and stay committed. Yeah, like, Feyre can be like, okay, like, yeah, if that stayed the case and Reese died, like, what would I be upset that we didn't get to do?
Yeah.
And so, okay, so she's alluding to this already heavily. Now, Feyre also after this, throwing things. Feyre after this goes and talks to Amryn. She learns at this point that Amryn and Nesta talk, that Nesta comes there every few days.
Yeah.
Amryn tells Feyre, like, listen, she's going through it, give her time and space. Okay, fine, so we're getting some insight that, like, Nesta might not just be a complete bitch, but that she's, like, just struggling. Okay, fine.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we learned from Amryn. We learned that they're talking, and again, they're both kind of, like, harsh people.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense that they're kind of talking. Okay.
Yeah. And now it's Solstice.
Right. It's funny because we're saying all these, like, kind of heavy points, but honestly the book is very cheerfully written, very Christmassy vibes.
Yeah. Very
light, fluffy, read it in, like, 2 hours.
It's like, yeah.
Even though, like, we're saying a lot of, like, intense points, it really doesn't come off written that way.
No, it's like a Hallmark movie.
Yeah.
It's gross.
Anyways.
So it's Solstice. Faye receives gifts from Reese. And Reese, like, leaves on a tradition. So we don't know what the tradition is.
He goes.
But he leaves. And then Lucian comes, and we find out that he's been staying with Jurian and Vasa in the human lands. And Lucian feels like he's found his home there, and they call themselves the Band of Exiles.
Which
Corny.
I laughed at, but then it's also like, we're
Sad.
dealing with people who call themselves the Inner Circle, which is also kind of cheesy as fuck when you think about it.
Yeah.
But they're just so cool, they can like get away with it. I feel like Lucian, Bass, and Jurian have like band tees, and they're like, we're the Band of Exiles.
Yeah.
And you're like...
But they also like don't have a place, so it makes sense that all the wayward people come together, right?
Correct, and it makes sense that they literally all are exiles. So like their name makes sense. It's just like, you're like, stop trying to be down, guys, because you're not.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it makes sense that they're together.
Mm-hmm.
I just wish they didn't give themselves a name. I'm like, you don't need to name everything.
Yeah, you do. It's fantasy. So
Yeah. Even Favor's like, ooh, that's your name? Okay.
Yeah. What did you think they were called? Band of Bandits or something like that?
Maybe.
Oh, you said something crazy the other day. I was like, what, Jamie?
I know what you're talking about. I forgot what I said.
That was funny.
I'm glad I wrote it down so I didn't embarrass myself.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't want to pull a me?
Yeah.
Anyways, so Lucian also tells Feyre in this encounter that, she should be careful around Tamlin because they might need him in the future. Which, interesting.
Yeah, what's that about? Again, this is nothing written yet, but he's like, yeah, like, don't be a dick to him. Like, you're going to need him before all this, like, treaty stuff is over. And you're like, okay. So,
yeah, what's
sure
going on here?
I'm sure. And so, after Feyre talks to Lucian, Moore comes in, and she's like, oh my god, like, they're at this stupid tradition, aren't they? And Feyre's like, what is it? And Moore's like, oh my god, do you want to go see? And Feyre's like, yes, because they're just girl ganging out. So Moore wheels her to the cabin, and they're having a full-blown snowball fight.
Yeah.
Like, big-ass swords. They have, like, a tally, like, hundreds of rounds against hundreds of rounds. And so they're hysterical. So they go into the cabin, they're, like, drinking, and then they all, like, after the snowball fight, like, have a naked sauna together?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Weird.
I don't know, guys. Is this normal? Probably, you weird freaks. And men are weird.
Yeah, they are.
And, so then Feyre, because she's a psycho, sends Rhys, like, porno in his mind of them.
Yeah.
And so he, like gets a boner and has to, like, leave the sauna and they kick him out because they're like, ew, dude, like, we could be naked, but we gotta be flaccid. Like, that's the rule.
That's funny.
So, Rhys is gone. He broke the one rule.
You're cut.
And, yeah. And so, once they all do that, they all go back for Solstice, like, for, like, the dinner celebration and stuff like that. And so, Elaine makes a cake because it's Feyre's birthday, as we know. There's all these cute allusions, like, Feyre was born on the longest night of the year. She's been meant for Rhys since the beginning. Okay, cute. Now, Elaine makes a cake for Feyre, and it's 3 tiers, and she makes the tiers like how Feyre painted the dresser, which is also a really sweet little tribute to her.
Yeah.
And she makes Feyre's dresser, the night one, the bottom, and she's like, oh, you've always been our foundation. Which I was like, that's really sweet. Like, Elaine's like acknowledging it, she's recognizing it.
Yeah.
She knows that she didn't do shit, that she'd be dead if it wasn't for Feyre, so I like that. Now, Feyre, again, as she's wishing on her birthday cake, she goes, oh, I know what I'm wishing for. Okay, we kind of all know what you're wishing for, too. We'll wait till you say it up front, but we know we're going in the thought process of children. So, now they're all hanging out for Solstice.
Yeah, and they're all just chilling, and knock, 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 guess who arrives? Nesta.
Right.
So, Nesta comes, and she's just like, the vibe immediately is killed. She just makes everything so awkward. I just feel like you could feel the tension in the
like
vibe.
they're all waiting on, like, is she okay? Is she gonna freak out?
Exactly.
Like, we don't want to be too happy around her. What do we do?
Yeah, so they all exchange gifts. The only person who got Nesta a gift was Elaine.
Which I don't think she's even mad about. I mean, it does prove the point. I think also people were like, she's not gonna show up, so I'm gonna get her a gift, I think in this case it's not horrible because, like, even, like, at one point Azrael asked Rhys, like, oh, do I get the sisters a gift, like, about like Elaine?
Yeah.
And Rhys was like, I think she'll let the sisters exchange their own gifts. So it was kind of also said.
And she's getting bankrolled anyway, so fuck her.
Right, like, that's your gift is existing, honestly. I'm like, what the fuck, Nesta?
Not being homeless.
So yeah, so it's like, I don't think it's like a slap in the face. It's not like everyone got gifts for each other and it's not Nesta. But it is a point of, like, Elaine still cares.
Yeah.
I think it's more of that point than, like, exclusion,
True, exactly. So she's there, and then like it doesn't really last long. She gets her money for her rent, and then she leaves.
And Feyre like says, like, I wish that she would have been like, no, I don't want it. Like, I just wanted to come. Like, Feyre was half hoping that she would turn it down. Because she was like, oh, shut up, here's your rent. Like, kind of sarcastic. And she was like, thanks, and left.
Yeah.
And Feyre was like, damn, like, you could have just came with your family and, like, had a nice evening.
Exactly.
You know? So Feyre's pissed.
Yeah. Not nice. So Nesta leaves and Cassian follows her. And Nesta's just being a bitch to him. And she's like, stop following me. Like, leave me alone. Like, blah, blah, blah. And Cassian actually got Nesta a gift, but because she was so mean to him,
like,
and
so mean.
Yeah, and he's annoyed. Like, he's like, why the hell am I going to give her this gift if she was being an asshole? So he throws it in the Sidra, which is the river.
Heartbreaking. Like, okay, so
then we learn what the gift was in Silver Flames.
Yeah, so we'll save it.
And you're like, oh my god.
Yeah, no, yeah, we have to, yeah. As a Cassian girly, this shit breaks my heart because
I mean, I'm upset for him too.
He spent months finding this gift. I would have loved this gift. I mean, it's just, and so at this point though, Cassian mentions that he like knows a wounded animal when he sees one.
Yeah.
And so he's the first one really. Everyone's like, Nessa's a fucking bitch. We hate her. I don't know if she's being so rude to all of us, blah, blah. He's the only one acknowledging, like, no, she's acting this way because she's in pain. And he's like, I am trying to help her. I'm trying to fix it. And so I respect and love him for this. At the same time, I just wish that she wasn't, like, biting the hand that's trying to help her. I get that that's what happens sometimes. We will do a deep dive next episode into Nesta and her coping and what we think of it and how it's reality for a lot of people, right? But at the same time, it's just hard to read. And again, like, you've learned to love these characters, right? Like, you don't want Cassian to be hurt either, you know?
Exactly.
Okay, and so...
Terrible. Well, we get a Nesta chapter now.
Yeah, so that's exactly. And so, kind of after you get insight that Cassian's like, no, she's in pain, you get a Nesta chapter, which proves exactly what the point is, right?
Yeah, so she's, like, in the trenches. She
is...
Yeah, she describes she, like, feels the silence. She, like, can't have a fire lit like in the fireplace because the cracking reminds her of her father's neck cracking. The days are going by so slow, but they're going by fast, you know, like she's just not doing well. So obviously she's like processing, she's going through grief, like she's just
grief, depression, PTSD, I'm sure, like she has the whole gamut. And she even says like, oh, when you just said like days go by fast, she like literally is like, oh, there's like 4 days and all of a sudden I didn't eat.
Yeah,
and you're
exactly.
like, oh, this girl is really struggling.
Not good, bro.
So yeah, she's just not doing well. And then after we have that Nesta chapter, I think again they pair those. They pair those chapters together to like get insight to Cassian and Nesta, and we learn that like Cassian's right, Nesta is struggling. Okay, so we kind of close that for a second, and we go to a Rhys chapter. Now here we learn that all the dresses that Feyre wears, Rhys's mother made, which is really sweet. We have a nice moment with them, and so Feyre tells Rhys, oh, I have a Solstice gift for you, and she shows him mind to mind. Now, again, heavy allusion to a baby. Now, at this point, we learn, you know, exactly what she's talking about toward the end of the chapter. And there's some nice quotes. I think they're relevant because I want to explain. In the first few books, we had quotes from Feyre saying, like, I don't want kids, I want to experience life with you. Okay, fine. Now, spoiler alert, skip ahead if you don't want to hear it. In Silver Flames, Feyre becomes pregnant. So I think if SJM was bringing it there anyway, you have to lay the groundwork for that to make sense. You can't just do it. And I think whether you like the plot point or not, that's a separate issue. She did the right job in laying the groundwork and not just making this like a random situation. And so she shows Rhys mind to mind, and he says, we can wait. So again, you're assuming it's a child. And she says, I don't want to. The Weaver have made me realize that too, or perhaps just see clearly what I've wanted for some time now. So again, whether you like the plot point or not, I respect that SJM is writing those things, right? And then
she's setting the scene.
Right, and as we talk more, you do in fact learn it is a child, and she says, the image of my gift remained between us, shimmering as bright as any star. that beautiful blue-eyed, dark-haired boy that the bone carver had once showed me. Okay, so you know that they're trying for a child now. Okay, great. Again, I don't necessarily love that trope, and we'll talk about that next book when it comes up. But SJM is laying the groundwork, so I have to give it to her and be like, okay, like at least you didn't fucking lazy write and just be like, well, this sounds like a good idea. Like, exactly. She knew it was coming, so she wrote about it. Okay, fine. And it makes it seem less random that Feyre had literally 2 books ago been like, I don't want kids yet.
Well, then it also makes sense, too, because in Silver Flames, like, it's very heavily Nesta and Cassian. So, like, it makes sense that, you know, like, Feyre as the main character, essentially, like, needs to be off somewhere else doing something else.
Yes, she's occupied being pregnant. Exactly. And then after this, Rhys brings Feyre along the riverside to all those mansions we talked about before, and he gifts Feyre a fucking mansion. Wow. And it's like in ruins, but he said, okay, we're rebuilding it, but I want you to make it a home. I want you to decorate it. Yeah. I want you to make homes for all of our friends, because they did talk about during Solstice, like it was cramped quarters. And he's like, we'll have rooms for everyone. You can have a room to paint. You can have a studio. You can have a nursery. So this is all very sweet. It's fine.
Again, Hallmark movie.
Right. I don't hate it, honestly. But that's what's going on.
Anyways. Give me the death, destruction, deceit, lies.
And that's why you have this point instead. We swapped it around.
Yeah. So Rhys goes back to visit Tamlin again. And this is when I was like, maybe Tamlin does deserve a redemption arc.
Right.
So Tamlin asks Rhys if he thinks that Feyre will ever forgive him. And he also asks Rhys, like, do you forgive me? Right. For, you know, your mom and your sister, basically. Which, wow. Okay, so, like, Tamlin obviously knows he fucked up, right?
Yeah, like, he's not completely heartless and ruthless. Like, he knows he's wrong, and he clearly has regret. Like, even, like, honestly, if he was acting normal, I would hate him more than the fact that he's in this, like, deep depression. Like, half is probably that he didn't get what he wanted, like, being Feyre in this life he imagined. But I think half of it is he's realizing, again, that it was his own actions that brought him here.
Exactly. And now he's all alone, right? So he's no one around him, so he has all this time to think and ponder. And, you know, he's really having to look back at his actions. So Rhys kind of concludes with, like, making him food, and he tells him to eat because Tamlin, like Nesta, is going through it.
Yeah, and I think, again, I don't know, kind of how Feyre's message to be happy, I would consider it a form of forgiveness. I think this is the same kind of vibe. Is it full forgiveness? Maybe not. But by having him eat and being kind and saying, Tamlin, please take care of yourself and eat this food I'm making you, I think is Rhys's form of forgiveness in some fashion, right?
Yeah.
And so, back, we have a more chapter. Sorry for whiplash, but it's happening. And so, Mor, the reason why this chapter is important, we want to mention it, is Mor has her own estate. The Inner Circle knows nothing about it. She hasn't told anyone. It's called Athelwood. She has a ton of horses, which, like, Mor is for sure a horse girl. Like, now that she said it, I'm like, yeah, she is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mor has a fuck ton of horses. I don't know, whatever. She, like, rides around on them. And so in this chapter, she's saying the hills are telling her to go. And it's, like, this, like, very, it's well written, nice chapter. And she's just saying, go, see what's out there.
It's like Sound of Music.
Yes, and I like it, and you know that Mor is going to be gone. Honestly, in Silver Flames, Mor is barely in that book, and this is, again, plot set up for that. So, fine, we know that Mor is going to take this job now and go to the continent, and I think that will unfold in a big way eventually.
Yeah, for sure. Can't wait to learn about that.
And then while we're out and about in, you know, the Night Court, Rhys goes up to the girls' camp, and he has the girls training. So, again, Illyrian's not super happy with him, but they are succeeding, and the women are training. How's that? You know, viewed from the Illyrians, not great, but okay, it is what it is.
Yeah. And so that really leaves us towards the end of the book. We end with Feyre actually getting gifted the studio that she had broken into.
Yeah. She tries to pay for it.
Yeah, she tried to pay for it, but the family, like, was like, no, like, our daughter would have wanted you to, like, have it and, like, to create art, basically. I don't know, some, like, inspirational deep shit. And she also partners with Racina, and they do kids classes once a week to help the children work through the trauma of going to war, but, like, through art. And
I like,
which is cute. And, like, she talks to Rhys about it in the book, which I think is nice. He's like, oh, like, how's it going? She was like, oh, well, this kid's, like, drawing a knife, like,
yeah, kinda... like, he supports her little venture, and, like, you know, she comes out covered in paint. Kids are like, mess around, blowing paint bubbles. Some of them are actually, like painting real things, and
Yeah.
like it's good all around,
Exactly. And she does make a point to say that, like, even though like things are still kind of up in flames, especially with the Illyrians and the humans, she's happy with Reese and like the work that she's doing now and just overall her life, which is nice, and I feel like it kind of wraps everything up again, like in that bow, like to kind of see like, oh, where they are now kind of thing.
Which I do like that, because I feel like a lot of books end after like the war ends or the big climax happened, and you never know like, okay, what's life like now? Because a lot of these times, right, cool, war ended, but like there's more to be done.
Yeah.
And so this book really offers that for us, right? And it's like Hallee just said, it ends nicely. Like, yes, even from the page 1, they're saying we're busy, we have a lot to do, it's hard work. But we end the book and it's like, Feyre's working now. In this new venture she has. She's building her river house. Like, she's happy. She's busy, and things are definitely not perfect. There's still stuff they have to settle.
It's real life.
To be expected, right?
Yeah.
And so, yes, that's how this book ends. Again, very happy, Christmassy, lighthearted read. Now, that being said, on the first read, it was just fluff, right?
I hated it.
Yeah, with the Illyrians, with like the plot set up for like childbearing, with Nesta, I'm like, I don't necessarily care, right? Now, in the second read, after reading Silver Flames, and honestly, the second read of Silver Flames after reading Crescent City, it all starts connecting a lot more. And so this book, honestly, is very important. I think that Silver Flames would not make sense without this book.
No, I would agree.
You can't just go from the main trilogy into Silver Flames.
Yeah. You needed this little, 200-page book to like kind of fill you in on what is going on.
Right.
This is basically like an introduction into the second half of the series, I would say.
Right, and this is, again, we're getting new plot points brought up, right? We're getting the Illyrians brought up. We're getting the baby plot brought up. And we're also getting introductions into new points of views, right? So, again, the first 3 books were Feyre. This book was a mashup of all of them, which I think was nice. Now, next book is going to be Nesta and Cassie, and that's it. And so I think that was a great way to, like, give us our last taste of Feyre and Reese.
Yeah.
But also introduce Cassie and Nesta and what's going on with them, and like get our first view into like their voice in our heads.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good literary transition.
And here's my thing. So again, spoiler, if you haven't read Crescent City, if you aren't really super into like the Moss verse yet, skip this part.
You're missing out. You should get into it.
Right. But here's my thing. I also think, because she's slotted for another novella and 2 more books for ACOTAR. I think after Crescent City 3, when the worlds intertwine, there will be a novella next as another transition into where the next 2 books go.
Okay.
My speculation, I have no idea. But I think her using novellas, she had the novellas slotted, so she knows they have to be quick little introductions to her new plot points. Yeah. So I'm curious where the next novella is going to fall in the...
Unless she ends with a novella.
She could. I almost rather her not. I think, again, as much as we are seeing the aftermath of war, we're getting introduced to new things. I think if it wasn't for the new plot points, you could expect what's happening after war. They're fixing it, you don't need as much. I think this one...
It could have been stated briefly, like in the beginning of Silver Flames.
Like a prologue.
Yeah.
Or an epilogue or whatever. So yeah. And so I think this book, again, it is fluffy, it is light, but it does serve a lot of points. Next book, we're talking a lot about the Illyrians. We're talking a lot about this baby plot. And as Hallee mentioned last episode, 2 episodes ago, it's going to fall a lot more into fantasy, magic, things like that. Yeah. And again, if you haven't read Crescent City yet, do so. And Silver Flames will be so much better of a book when you read that. The first time we read it, we were like, I hate the plot, but it's great sex scenes. Second read, I love Silver Flames.
Yeah.
There were so many Easter eggs for the Mossverse as a whole.
I had such a different experience rereading it.
So we're excited to dive into that. We don't know how many parts it's going to be yet. It's a big book.
Yeah, we should probably do 3.
It might be 3. It might be 2, depending, because honestly, not going to lie, a lot of the physical length of it is sex scenes, and we don't need to really dive into that too much. So it could be a 2-parter, it could be 3. Not sure yet.
2-fer.
Right. 2-fer or 3-fer. We don't know.
Yeah.
And then we're going right into Crescent City. So we have the full gamut for you guys. And you guys did vote. After we finish ACOTAR's full series, Crescent City, up to Crescent City 3, we'll be doing a thriller. So look out for our poll in the next 2 weeks on our 2-month posting anniversary. And you guys will vote which thriller we are reading next. So we'll get prepped and ready for that. Yeah, super exciting. And so get ready for Silver Flames. It's going to be a different world. Again, kind of like how the first book, we felt like it was different from the series. This is, again, a whole different world. A lot of history, a lot of background and groundwork laid. Mm-hmm. So get ready. It's going to be some heavy content and a lot of theorizing.
Yeah.
All right, my friends.
Thanks for tuning in. And
hopefully we survive in Arizona.
Yeah. Pray for us.
So hopefully we'll be here for next episode. I don't know.
We will. Stop it.
All right, we will see you guys next week for our first part of Silver Flames.
Alrighty. Bye.
Bye.